the dais, Pramod, Deepak, Aruna, David and Sairaj, and the many distinguished people in the audience here. Let me first compliment ICRIER for a very rigorous research and thought leadership in shaping policy discourse on India's digital transformation. I'm particularly delighted at this CHIPS framework, connect, harness, innovate, protect, and sustain in a way. It's a very comprehensive methodology that really captures the true scale and depth of digitization, which has happened in India in many ways. And I wanted to compliment the authors, Deepak in particular, Mansi Kedia, who made this wonderful presentation as well, Aarti, Kritika Ramnath, Shruti Wanguri, and this is truly exceptional work. So, and this latest research, to my mind, provides one of the most comprehensive and globally benchmarked estimates of India's digital economy. And actually, this is the first study in India to use the OECD and ADB frameworks for digital economy measurement. And this goes beyond traditional definitions by including the digitalization of sectors like banking, education, and retail. And the report captures the employment impact, showing how the digital economy creates new jobs and transforms industries. I'm particularly delighted at this report because most reports which are prepared by WEF and others, they are very, very skewed against emerging markets. It's also important to understand that this year, almost according to IMF, almost 70% of the global growth is going to come from middle and low-income countries, and actually this is going to continue for the next 3 decades. 3/4 of the world growth is going to come from emerging markets. And this is largely going to happen because, the demographics are very young in the global south, whereas the population across America, Europe, Japan, all of them are aging. Secondly, it's very important to understand, and I don't know why Mansi said in that slide that whether it's a boon or a curse. It's definitely not a curse. It's a huge boon that we've technologically pole vaulted through the mobile in telephony, because India is unique simply because what India has done, nobody else in the world has done. That we have 1.4 billion people with digital identity. But then between 2015 and 2017, we opened about 550 million bank accounts. Every second bank account opened in the world was opened in India. Then we linked it up through a massive campaign with the digital identity and the mobile number. And then we started doing fast payments. And actually last year we've done 50% of the real-time fast payments in the world. China is next with 20%. And because of these fast payments, you had a number of young startups, MobiKwik, Pine Lab, etc., who started using the credit history of payments to provide credit to people. And you had a huge amount of innovation because you had next a huge number of startups like Zerodha, Grow, Upstock. They took wealth creation stock market to tier 2, tier 3 cities. And they started taking the stock market to rural areas. And then you had young startups like GoDigit and Acco, who started giving insurance to people in rural areas and tier 2, tier 3 cities. So what has happened in India is revolutionary, that from bank account to credit to stock market, wealth creation, insurance, India does in 30 seconds to 1 minute. 30 seconds to 1 minute. And I'm saying this because it's definitely a boon, because I've worked with traditional fishermen in Kerala, where it used to take me 6 months to open a bank account for traditional fishermen, because know your customer was a nightmare. And I've seen when I wanted to buy a LIC policy, it used to take me 6-7 months of paperwork. It's all happening in 30 seconds to 1 minute in India. And therefore, my view is that India is far more advanced, and David comes from Netherlands, and Europe is almost like a third world country now, as far as the digital transformation of India is concerned. Because it's also important to say this, because during the COVID period, we could do 2.2 billion COVID vaccination, which is all paperless and cashless. And we could actually put money into the bank accounts of over 500 million people, particularly over 150 million women, without any leakage whatsoever. Whereas in the case of United States, 18% of the checks issued came back, and Germany, they were struggling to find out whom to send money to. So India demonstrated that this is the system, and today in over 700 schemes of the government, we are putting money directly into the beneficiary's bank account without any leakage. So my view is that all this progress which India has made never gets captured, because as Robert Solow, who was a Nobel laureate, and whose work on economic growth actually set the foundation for economic growth theory, had once quipped that you can see the computer age everywhere, but in the productivity statistics. And this was said in 1987, when the when the usage of computers had actually exploded in developed economies, but a statistic showed slowing productivity. And this became known as the productivity paradox, or the Solow paradox. And many explanations were then put forward for this, with measurement or mismeasurement being one. And one of the reasons that the Solow paradox actually persisted was the inability of economists and statisticians to capture the productivity effects. And in the age of digital technologies proliferating and technology developing at a massive speed, measuring their impact is crucial. And to my mind, the digital economy is not just a sector, but the backbone of modern economic growth. And yet, traditional methods of GDP measurement completely failed to capture its full impact. And understanding the contribution of digital platforms, fintech, AI, and digital public infrastructure. And digital public infrastructure is very important, because the methodology followed in India is very different from the rest of the world. All the technological evolution that has happened in the western part of the world has happened because of Google, it's happened because of Meta, it's happened because of Amazon, and in China because of Tencent and Alibaba. But they capture the data, and they own that. The service provider owns the data. But in India's case, we created the public identity layer on top of which private sector competes. So we are the only country where private sector competes on top of the public interest layer, which is open source, open API, which is globally interoperable. And that is why, our model, the definition of this, the framework of this was accepted during G20, and this will be the way forward. And that is why the Bank of International Settlement actually in its study said that what India achieved in 7 years would have taken India actually 47 years to achieve. And the other important thing to point out is that the cost of transaction, because of this, the cost of transaction has actually fallen very rapidly in India. According to another study by World Bank, the cost of transaction has fallen from $25 to less than 15 cents in India by the World Bank. And that is the reason why a company like Reliance Jio could actually acquire 510 million customers in 10 months' time, because the customer was being acquired using the iris or the hand finger, and he just went around booming in a very big way. And therefore, to my mind, it's a huge boon. And the mobile telephony is a huge boon, and that is the way the world will grow and progress, and prosperity will take place in the future. So my view is that what India has done is something unique, and the progress made is going to be incredible. And my view also is that the artificial intelligence race actually has just begun, and this race is wide open, and the race will not be won by those who build up a very high cost model, but will be won by those who democratize technology and who use open source and who use cost competitive and less energy consuming technology. I mean, what has been demonstrated by DeepSeek is that despite the constraints of hardware, of computing power, and despite laws being built by United States of not being, that we are not going to provide cutting edge technology of NVIDIA A100 or H100 to China, great sophisticated soft power combined with computing power and very clever engineering could demonstrate that you can technologically leapfrog. And therefore, my view is that this race is very wide open, with India having about close to 500,000 technical engineers, with 92% AI adoption rate amongst its enterprises, and doing very well in the GitHub of Microsoft, which shows that the AI acceptability and the technological power is hugely there, demonstrates that in future we'll create sovereign foundational models which will be less energy consuming. And I'm particularly delighted that the new tenders which have been issued by the AI missions, the computing power to our institutes, research students, will be available at incredibly low cost. It's come down to about 140 odd, 115 odd rupees, and with a 40% discount, it will be the cheapest computing power of the most powerful NVIDIA computers being available, GPUs being available to Indian research students and to our startups. So this race is very much wide open, and actually the winners will be those who use sovereign foundational model, and sovereign foundational models are very critical and important because India is a country with about 22 languages, vast dialects, and it's very important that in the maze of all this we don't lose our history, our culture, our civilization, which on the basis of which we should build our foundational models. And we should not end up becoming a technology colony of China and USA. And therefore my view is that this particular study is very, very critical, because I've always believed that many of these ranking and indices are highly skewed in favor of the Western economies, in favor of the developed economies. They don't take into consideration much of what is happening in the developing nation, whereas all the growth is coming from middle and low-income countries in the years to come. So I would only say that India has made historic digital gains, but the journey has just begun for India. And the challenge ahead is very, very clear, that governments must strengthen digital infrastructure, businesses must continue to innovate, and startups must continue to disrupt, and individuals must embrace more and more digital skills. The government, business, startups, and citizens must work together to ensure very inclusive, sustainable, and innovation-driven digital growth. This report really provides a roadmap, and I think it should really shape the future of India's digital economy. To my mind, the future of India's economy is entirely digital, and this report will go a long way in really putting before the world on how much progress India has made. And I'm truly delighted that this report has been brought out. The important thing now is to publicize this report in a very vigorous manner. In fact, we should go to the extent of challenging all other reports which have been brought out by by this telecom institution and by this WEF, etc. Because my view is that this report is based on very sound foundations, very solid assumptions, and we should greatly use this to our to publicize and highlight the very many achievements which India has made in this field. So congratulations once again to Deepak, Mansi, and to the entire ICRIER team for doing such a brilliant job. Thank you very much.
Amitabh, thank you. Thank you, Amitabh. Brilliant as always. I mean, very deeply insightful. I think the point that you keep making, and I've heard you many times talk about, is the revolution that has happened in India in this particular area. There are many areas where it hasn't happened. Is actually astonishing, and the West, perhaps, or the developed countries, and many other people really haven't figured this out yet as well as they could. The entire presence of DPI, certainly when I talk to people about it when I'm traveling, remains a surprise, remains a concept that is hard for them to grasp. It's a bit like if the internet wasn't public, if it was privatized and held by a few companies. Think of how the world may have evolved at that point in time. And your point about democratization and of AI as well as open sourcing it, I really believe along with you that that is the way that this will evolve. But many much smarter people than me have been proved completely wrong in this entire area. Aruna, may I now call on you to give us a special address? Thank you.
Pramod, Amitabh, Deepak, Sehraj, David, distinguished guests in the audience. At the outset, I'm delighted to be here on the occasion of the launch of the third edition of the CIDE report. We already saw over the last two editions that this report was fairly unique, and if anybody had any doubts that this was not the authoritative seminal report that we had all been looking for, I think the third edition establishes it completely. As all the speakers here before me have pointed out, India's, and in fact many developing countries' journeys towards digitization have been unique and different in their own ways. And until now, we have really been struggling to find an adequate analysis that can explain what exactly is going on. Clearly, India's economic progress and growth are so completely intertwined with the progress of the digital economy. And so when visitors or analysts have asked what exactly is happening in India's digital journey, we did not until now have an authoritative account of where we stand, what are the drivers that got us here, what are the areas of strength, what are areas that still need to be addressed. And so I think this report really fulfills a very, very valuable need. The report is seminal and path-breaking for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, we have lacked a robust conceptual framework and tool within which to look at the new paradigm of digitization that is emerging across economies. As Deepak pointed out, the old paradigm, which is the pre-digital telecom paradigm, based on which most conventional indices were constructed, that can only get us so far. And we have often struggled to explain the dramatic transformation and changes that have happened with the Aadhaar, the UPI, the India stack, the mobile connectivity revolution, in terms of